Pet Sematary is the feature film adaptation of Stephen King's famous and terrifying novel, and a remake of the 1989 cult classic film. And in this film, the story revolves around a family who moves into their new home in Maine and meets a new neighbor. And then after this family loses their cat in an accident, it later resurrects. And then the family later on starts to discover the dark and terrible secrets of the Pet Sematary. And then some really horrible crap start to happen. I am a huge fan of the 1989 film. I love Pet Sematary. I think it's a very interesting concept. In my opinion, it was very suspenseful. It had a lot of tension. The characters weren't really interesting, but I loved I loved what this film was going for, and mostly that this was an 80s film and they didn't use practical effects. They used actual animals in this film. So Pet Sematary is something that has been stuck with me ever since I saw it for the very first time. So I have a lot of respect for the original Pet Sematary, and I was actually very optimistic in walking into this movie. And thank God this movie is not trash. And I say that because horror movie remakes are sometimes usually trash. They're garbage. A Nightmare on Elm Street, Rings, Friday the 13th, Poltergeist. These remakes of these classic horror films, these remakes that I just mentioned of these classic horror films are perfect examples of remakes that are complete trash. They are nothing compared to the classic movies that we know and love, and most of the time, these remakes aren't even good on their own right. But Pet Sematary wasn't really that bad, honestly. I had a really good time with this film. And this is coming from a person who really appreciates the original movie. This movie really does have a lot going for it. It's not a great movie. In my opinion, I'd say this is a tad over, a bit over average. This movie lays in a really good category, honestly. And I say that because there are parts of this movie that really felt balanced, and you could tell what this movie was going for, and other parts that had bumps and flaws, and you were like, oh, okay, well, that's expected. This is not really a perfect or great movie. I do have problems with this movie, but since I am a big fan of the original Pet Sematary, I like a lot of the things that this movie did. The characters aren't really that interesting in this movie again. I have to say the performances are amazing in this film. And I have to say that's easily the best thing about this film, the performances. And this movie's filled with great performances, honestly. The kids, the adults, it's all there. In my opinion, John Lithgow does an excellent job in this movie, and that's something I really do have to give praise to. Because this film honestly really set up a really great line of actors, and the cast in this film is really great. One disappointing thing that I found while watching this movie was I felt like there wasn't much suspense a bit than there was in the first Pet Sematary. And I don't know if it's just me, but literally in the first half of this movie, the film just tells you what Pet Sematary is, and it's kind of unnecessary because we already can be pretty aware of what Pet Sematary is. We technically know what Pet Sematary is, so why are we giving all of this information thrown at us for the first half of the movie? And I mean, it's not something that absolutely annoyed me. I just felt like most of it didn't need to be there because we already knew the premise of Pet Sematary, especially the fans that love the original Pet Sematary, like myself. But that's not to say the first half was terrible, because the first half wasn't. There were some things that I really liked about the first half of this movie. There are a couple of thrilling moments in the first half, and even a couple of jump scares in the first half of the movie. But when I say a couple, I mean literally only a couple. Like maybe one or two jump scares. That's it. but they're worth waiting for, and the story was something I was able to follow up with, even though I already knew what Pet Sematary was, and I've seen the original film, and I know about the book, and I know what the story of Pet Sematary is. I was still following up with the story in this film, because in some certain ways, this film was able to capture some new elements that the original Pet Sematary didn't have. And I really did appreciate that about this film. But other than that, I can tell I was watching something that looked familiar, because it was. Like, 95% of the story is the exact same thing that we've seen in the original Pet Sematary. But it doesn't mean it's bad. Technically, I'd say 98% of the things that are in this movie were seen in the original Pet Sematary. But honestly, there were moments in this film that I was in the edge of my seat, because there were some thrilling and intense moments, like maybe during the last act of this movie, or the second half of the movie. And I was really hoping for this film to have some brand new ideas. And sadly, we didn't get those. Because from the look of the trailer, I thought that this film was sort of going to take a little bit of a different turn. But it didn't. But I can respect the tension that they tried to bring in this movie, and the thrilling sequences. And like I said, the performances are top notch. They are flawless in this film. Although the father isn't really an interesting character. He doesn't really have much to him, and he's the main character, which is kind of sad. But in all honesty, Jason Clarke's character wasn't bad. I just didn't really have it in his character. I technically saw him as a basic father in movies, I guess. And I wanted a little more to this character. But this character is almost an exact copy and paste of the same exact father from the original Pet Sematary. The only difference is they're played by two different actors. The girl in this movie is really great. Jatae Lawrence really delivers as a kid actor in this film. And honestly, I'd like to see her in more horror movies, because her acting commits, honestly. And when you just watch her performance, you could obviously feel that it's just so devastating just watching her turn from this innocent little daughter into this nightmare that's resurrected. And I thought the film was able to capture that really well, honestly. Honestly, Pet Sematary is a really promising adaptation. I like this movie. It's really good enough. It's nowhere near as good as the original Pet Sematary film. But honestly, this film did deliver for me. It didn't really disappoint, honestly. This movie does have some little things that I was disappointed about in regard to the story being a little bit more different and stronger, and a couple of the characters having some more development to them. But other than that, Pet Sematary was a really good time. I'm actually kind of excited to see this movie again sometime. And I'm a huge fan of the original Pet Sematary, so I really liked a lot of the things that this film was able to do. I'm going to give Pet Sematary a B-. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. Look forward to more reviews that'll be coming very soon. You guys are the best. Love every single one of you. And as always, I am MarioFan520, and I will see you next time. Peace out.